Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win here, and today we are playing Monster Hunter Rise. Just recently dropped on Friday, spent all weekend farming some stuff up. Today we're going to take a look at the Sinister Armor as well as the Sinister Staff. Sinister Armor, as you can see here, is the armor from the Magna Malo monster. As you can see, its resistances are pretty decent. It is very weak, however, to water and thunder types, which is very, very prevalent in Monster Hunter Rise, at least the world. So, going to show you the stats here before we actually get into a couple of hunts in the guild hall. As you can see, fire resistance 18, water resistance minus 12, minus 7 thunder resistance, ice resistance is significantly high. We have the 5-piece bonus because we have all 5 pieces of armor on. The abilities are Resentment, Counter-Strike, Hellfire Cloak, which is really good. Critical Eye and Wall Runner are coming from my Novice Talisman that I got. I did have the deluxe edition of the game. Okay, so Resentment will give you an attack boost of up to plus 15 with all the armor decked out here. Counter-Strike will also give you a plus 25 after activation. Hellfire Cloak goes in interesting armor where you increase the damage of Hellfire, but then it goes up to 25%, as you can see. Critical Eye, Wall Runner, they're self-explanatory here. I'm going to go a little bit further into the skills here in a second to show you exactly what every skill does. One thing I'm not too keen on is the interface in this particular Monster Hunter with the UI. So as you can see, one piece, the helm will give you Resentment and Counter-Strike. Resentment, increase attack when you have recoverable damage. That's the red gauge. Counter-Strike, temporary, increase the attack every time you get knocked back. Since we're a Glaive user, we get knocked back a lot, so that's going to actually come in very handy. Hellfire Cloak grants Hellfire resistance and confers explosive Hellfire power to your attacks. So, as you can see, the one piece reduces damage from Hellfire. 2-piece increase the damage of the Hellfire more. And then when you actually get the 3-piece bonus here, you will get a increase to your attack stat as well as being Hellfire blighted. So we're going to take this into a couple of low rank guild hall. I have actually finished the village quest storyline. I did opt not to play that on the channel because I did not want to spoil any of the story. I'm actually currently going through now the high rank story, obviously offline. I am not going to play any of the story missions in the game for you guys because that is very spoiler territory. However, I will tell you right now, one of the new monsters we're going to be fighting is Kulu Yaku. That is a monster that you will be probably encountering around the 3-star village quest once you get to the dunes. There are a couple other returning monsters that we're going to be fighting today. So if you're one of those people that doesn't like to get spoiled as to what monsters are in the game, you probably want to look away from this video. If you're cool with just the monsters being shown, then definitely hang in there. Insect Glaive is definitely going to be very unique now. It's been changed significantly from the way it was in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. It did get a couple of new tricks in Monster Hunter World, which was a game that I actually skipped over because I did not have a PlayStation 4, or obviously now a PlayStation 5 to play it on. Monster Hunter Rise is the newest game and actually seems to follow, at least in terms of storyline, Monster Hunter 4. Like, it seems like it's set many, many, many years in the future from that game. So Insect Glaive is really interesting in the sense that now it keeps all the regular buffs that it had. So when you get the triple man thing, you get increased armor, you get still your high-grade earplugs, and you also get your knockback resistance. You also used to get infinity depending on the bug that you had with the Consec. Unfortunately, I haven't seen or encountered as of yet any of the Consecs that actually give you the affinity bonus. But in order to get the maxed out Consecs in the game, you have to actually progress through the story. So I'm assuming that's very high up in high rank, probably towards the end where you get the super good Consecs. But the one I have right now is pretty good because when you do hit spots, you get a double buff. So you either get a red and yellow, or in this particular situation, you also get a red and white from this bug. It comes in very handy. Or actually, it's not a red and white. It's a white and yellow with this particular bug. So, but as I was saying, there's been some changes to Insect Glaive. For example, there are no longer traditional styles in Monster Hunter Rise like there were in Monster Hunter Generation. So if you were thinking aerial style, Valor style, Striker style, all those things have gone out the window. It's kind of more like guild style, but as you can see here, even when fighting the monster, they have changed Glaive significantly. They gave it more attacks. Like when you're up in the air and you have your red and your white buff, you can actually start swinging your insect glaive around to keep yourself propelled, and you can keep propelling yourself constantly while you're up in the air. It's going to be a little hard to pull it off against this monster because this one in particular is much smaller. Glaive is really good aerial-wise when you're going against really large monsters because you could just constantly hit them. But now you can stay aerial for quite a while. So even though they took away the aerial style in terms of an actual style you can pick, they actually implemented certain elements of it into the actual insect glaive's new attacks when you're actually up in the air and have some buffs. So that's really cool. One of the things that has been changed dramatically from Monster Hunter Generations and Generations Ultimate to Monster Hunter Rise is the fact that you no longer can mount monsters the traditional way. It used to be like with the insect glaive or with any weapon that you had on aerial style, where you actually got up in the air and you actually hit a monster, there was a large possibility that the monster would fall over and you would be able to mount them that way. Now, they've changed the mounting mechanic for Monster Hunter Rise, so you have to do a significantly large amount of damage to the monster, and then eventually you'll get a prompt where you can have your new spring wire bug, which is the new mechanic where you use a bug to like traverse and to dodge, and that's used with your ZL button to actually, as it's called there, wire bug. So it's not necessarily spear bug, although they call some of them spear bugs. So the wire bug that you use, there's a little prompt when the monster's like kind of woozy and toppled over and into the state to be able to mount it, and you mount it that way, but it's not the same minigame. The only way you can really knock it over is if you knock it into the wall, and like 2 times usually it'll do the trick, and then it'll fall over, and then you can pretty much do a lot of damage to the monster. However, the monster doesn't stay as dazed as it used to be, so that's kind of a little bit of a drawback. Another way that you can mount the monsters is if 2 monsters are fighting each other. This is usually called a territorial battle, because now the monsters actually fight for territory. You can ride one of the monsters and use it to attack the other monster that you're trying to hunt, and if you build up the gauge while you're on the monster and you get to the maxed out and hit the max attack, you have possibility of stunning the monster longer. You can even actually kill the monster with another monster that you've mounted. I've actually done it before. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it because it is very situational to get these mounting situations. Now, it's not as frequent. You can't necessarily do it every hunt unless you have a spider that is a ecology-like thing that you come across as you're actually traversing the land, and that's got random RNG to it. It's called a puppet spider. That will let you automatically mount the monster that way. So mounting has definitely been changed. It's not as easy to do anymore. You don't necessarily need it. One of the things that's new is called the switch styles. Switch styles are basically kind of sort of like Hunter Arts, but you can kind of always use them where it's kind of mapped to specific buttons where you can pull it off based on the situation, so you can change it. So you can kind of change the attacks that each of the weapons and basically the weapon types that you pick in the game, and you can unlock many other ones. So it's kind of like a mix between Hunter Art and necessarily a style one. So that's a nice little sacrifice. I'm actually using 2 of them, as you saw earlier on in the beginning of the video, that work really well with each other. The aerial slash, as well as a one that just spins your glaive around when you're on the ground, does a ton of damage that way. So that's a really good thing. Another thing that you're going to notice now with this particular Monster Hunter, as opposed to Monster Hunter Rise, this was something that was actually featured in Monster Hunter World, which is a nice carryover onto the Switch, is that there's no longer loading between areas on the map. The whole map acts as a whole unique world, like Monster Hunter World, so you can actually just follow monster. There's no loading screens. That nice little transition helps greatly. One of the things that I did note when I was playing this on the demo that I think is very important to note is that when you actually start up Monster Hunter Rise and you actually start attacking monsters, you're actually going to be able to see the hit points and the critical hit damage. I don't like that because I prefer the more cinematic style presentation. So fortunately, what they actually did, I'm so happy Capcom implemented this, is that when you go into the options, you can actually turn off the damage display. so that it doesn't appear when you're actually fighting the monsters. Yeah, you won't be able to see how much critical hit damage you're doing, but if you are a veteran's monster hunter, you know it's always important to hit the head or the tail. Usually those are the weak spots of monsters, and usually you already know the elemental weaknesses as well as some of the status weaknesses that at least old returning monsters have that everybody's familiar with. So you don't really necessarily need the numbers. I recommend turning off the numbers because it looks just a better presentation, in my personal opinion, gives for a more cinematic experience in that retrospect. But that's a nice change. So we got that in turn. He's sleeping, so he's close to death. So I'm just going to wail on him. I'm going to hit my down A, and then I'm going to get into the slash motions, hopefully. There's that slash. That's actually my hunter style right there. Okay, see? He's not going to be able to last long here. Yeah, that was my striker style right there, one of them. Or switch style, I should say. We could... He's already stunned, but I'm going to grab this bug. Now there's bugs that actually interact with you in the area, and they give you actually damage increases, defense increases, and I think my pet actually took him out there, so we took down the Kulu Yaku. If I mispronounce any of these names, do not hang me up. I am not native Japanese, but I believe that says Kulu Yaku. So, pretty straightforward there. This is one of the monsters you're going to come across in Village Freestar. Appears very early into the guild hall, though. You already start seeing it in 1-star quests. All the quests we're doing today are 1-star, low rank armor. After the first experimentation with the Sinister Armor, I will tell you, Hellblight is really, really good. It gives you a damage increase, so you're doing a lot more damage. This is really good armor. When you actually augment it, which is leveling it up with the armor spears, which is back. There's the armor spears, the regular ones, the plus spears, and I've already seen advance. I'm not sure how far up it goes. I have seen as far as advance. I'm pretty sure there's probably 2 or 3 more tiers. I'm not going to confirm that now because I haven't gotten that far into high rank to be able to like confirm if it goes all the way up to true armor spears or divine armor spears. Probably not. So that was pretty easy. Questions that people have had is very common. Is there G rank in Monster Hunter Rise? Now, traditionally, every time a Monster Hunter game comes out, usually the first installment of the game will only give you low rank and high rank. That's the case with Monster Hunter Rise. There's a possibility they do a DLC like they did for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, where they introduce their own version of G rank, which was Master Rank. So maybe they'll put G rank in. There is a big update that is planned for April already. So apparently there's going to be a lot more content, newer content. I'm not sure if that means that we'll get G rank. I'm pretty sure we'll get G rank probably about a year into the game to almost 2. It depends really what they do, if they're going to go Monster Hunter Rise Ultimate Edition, which is usually what they've done in the past. The only exception was obviously Monster Hunter World, which was on PS4, where they just kind of gave the DLC where instead of buying a brand new game, they just said pay $25, $30, and this is the G-Rank DLC add-on, which, honestly, I would prefer just to pay the $30 for a DLC add-on. That opens it up to a whole other story, you know, 3 or 4 gigs extra, which they can definitely do. This game's not that big, actually. It's only about roughly 13.5 gigs. I do have the physical version of that. So right now we're hunting a great Izuchi. This is actually one of the very first monsters that you usually fight in the game. And it's actually really cool. Its armor for low rank is actually really good. It gives you critical eye plus free right off the bat. It gives you constitution as well as recovery speed. So if you're somebody that plays those super fast weapons like dual blades or insect glaive or sword and shield, I would definitely recommend using this as your starter armor for your village quest. I actually was using the Great Izuchi armor up until when I fought Magnamalo in the story. And then obviously I farmed him to get this armor because this armor just kind of trumps it a little bit. Unfortunately, in the very beginning of low rank and even the beginning of high rank, you're not going to have access to really a lot of talisman options. So, you know, one of the things that I probably would prefer to rock on here is if I could get a good talisman that's critical eye plus free, I would definitely add that to this particular armor for low rank. But the problem is you're not going to really encounter talismans. By the time you encounter talismans, you're going to be on high rank. And there is a high rank variation of the Sinister Armor. I do not know what its name is yet. Like I said before, I was playing this all weekend, but I have not finished the high rank story mode. I actually just got to it as of last night when this was recorded, so keep that in mind. So definitely, as you can see, I'm glowing here. That's because I have the Hellfire Blight on myself, which increases the amount of damage that I do. I believe it also gives an infinity boost, but do not 100% quote me on that. One of the problems is, unfortunately, even with the status screens and everything, it's very vague as to what exactly certain skills still do. Like, it'll say increase attack, but then it says it gives you the Hellfire Blight, but it doesn't tell you what Hellfire Blight exactly does. So, unfortunately, that's one of the problems. Minor nitpick with the game, but that's just kind of the case with every Monster Hunter game, where they kind of leave you to try to figure out if being Hellfire Blight is good or not. Based on what I'm seeing so far, yeah, definitely it is good. Gives you your damage increase. As you see, every time the monster gets enraged, I get kind of this purple aura, and as you can see, I'm doing a ton of damage to him, so I have to think that this gives a significant attack boost. And remember, I am using Glaive, so triple buff used to give you also an infinity boost. So if it still gives me the infinity boost plus the critical eye, I'm just walloping on this thing right now. I'm going to dodge out of the way because it looked like he was going to go for triple strike. Yep, he did. So, early impressions of Glaive. I was a little disappointed with the fact they took away the mount mechanic for Glaive, but incorporating the aerial style into the actual regular attacks, giving it more attacks when you're actually up in the air, which is something that hadn't been done before. And they kind of gave a modified, like, down slash that can actually even exhaust the monster if you do it right. That's actually one of the switch styles where you just hold in the left trigger and you hit A, and it actually is going to do this downward slash. And if you do it right, you can actually exhaust the monster with it and knock them out, which is really, really cool. I actually like that quite a bit. So they gave them some new tricks. They took away the mounting aspect, but then they gave it, like, built-in aerial style, which is really good. So a lot of people were complaining about the changes with the Insect Glaive. Some people were complaining about the Consec because now you don't level the Consec up. You actually just have to purchase Consecs from the store, and you have to go progress through the story to get the better ones. So minor inconvenience. You can get some good ones already by Freestar Quest. And realistically speaking, if you are a veteran Glaive player, you already kind of know how to maneuver a Consec that has very low stamina, because it takes a while before... Usually most Glaive users would not get their Consec maxed out until they were very late into endgame, where they were just farming stuff to do endgame. So I'm kind of used to slow Consecs in the beginning of the game anyway. So that's fine. As you can see graphically, this is a significant upgrade to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. This is running on the RE engine, which is the same engine that is used in the new Resident Evil games. So maybe this is a little bit of foreshadowing that we might actually see the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake maybe at some point make it to the Switch. Maybe even the Resident Evil 8, which is Resident Evil Village, might make it in. This is some foreshadowing. Very impressive that we get this powerful engine already on the Switch, proving its performance. As you can see, there's no hiccups. I have not encountered any frame rate. This monster's sleeping as well, so this is going to go down super fast. I just got to get my buff on the head. I actually need... Alright, there we go. Or buff the tail, actually, to get the red and yellow. Hellfire Blight was active, but we got knocked back. But because we get knocked back, our Counter-Strike ability gets activated, too. So I would say this armor works very well with Glaive, because Glaive tends to get knocked back a lot. And we just did a downward slash, which kind of one-shotted him. And we took down the great Izuchi. Let's farm his pieces. That is a little bit of a nitpick right there. If the Palamute is too close to you, you actually will end up riding it. It happens also in the village a lot when you're trying to eat and the dog gets too close to you and you just end up riding it. Hopefully they kind of fix that. Maybe in an update. At least patch it so he doesn't move around that fast. Or another thing that obviously is different is you can ride the Palamute. So now you have routable mounts, which is cool because you can traverse the land a lot faster. You don't waste your stamina. Because back in the day, old school Monster Hunter, you had to actually run around the map trying to get to the monster. Now you could just ride the mount and not expend any of your stamina, so that was a very good improvement. Everything in Monster Hunter Rise is just nice quality of life changes. Like, when you go to farm the mining area, all you have to do is hit it once. You don't have to constantly hold in the A button. If you go to gather honey or plant-based materials or mushrooms, you don't have to hold the A button in or constantly hit it. You just hit it once, and it farms everything on that plant, which is something people wanted for a long time. Another cool change, this was the change that was brought about in Monster Hunter World, to my recollection, is that the whetstones, you used to have to farm for whetstones. Now whetstone is just infinite, so you can constantly sharpen your blade, not have to worry about, oh, I need a whetstone or anything. It's built-in mechanic now. Trapping monsters, I had heard in World that you didn't actually have to make traps or trank bombs. I don't know if that's the case. Remember, I did not play Monster Hunter World, but you have to actually still craft your own traps and craft your trank bombs. You can buy trank bombs from the merchant, though, which is something that you couldn't do in the older games. Usually you had to like actually get the items to farm in, then to combine it. So that's a minor nice change to that. So graphically it looks very good. Frame rate running, I would say 60 frames per second. I haven't encountered any frame rate issues. There was somebody who was complaining about the swamp area, which is the Forbidden Forest, I believe it's called. No, Flooded Forest. And in the Flooded Forest, people were complaining that the frame rate dipped depending on the monster you fought. I fought a lot of monsters so far in the Flooded Forest. I haven't seen any of those issues, or at least they weren't anything that was significant or game-breaking, so I don't know. People like to complain a lot. We're fighting Great Baggy, so spoiler, Great Baggy is back. All these monsters are pretty much the lower tier, I believe the Wyvern types that they're considered. So, you know, these are all like the first monsters you fight. Obviously, very early into Monster Hunter Rise still, in terms of my gameplay with it. So, going to be fighting a lot of the early monsters as a friend. We're going to do one more monster after this one. Great Baggy might give us a little bit more of a challenge. Here I'm going to go aerial style, and he blocked me into sleep. Okay, that's kind of cool. I can't hate on that. And he hip checked us. All right. So pretty much all the weapons are back. Unfortunately, they didn't add any new weapon types to the game. I guess they figure with all the ones that are available so far, they didn't need to add even more. But everything returns. Gunning is significantly different from what it was in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. It's not clunky. It's actually really good. I haven't made any gunning weapons yet. Like I said, I'm going to kind of farm a lot of the insect glaives first, and then I'm going to start farming the rest of the weapons and weapon types, the good ones. Also going to be farming armors, and then eventually my plan is we're going to be doing more significant armor reviews and go more into depth with that. And, oh, this is a perfect example. This is when two monsters are fighting for territory. You can actually then use your wire bug to mount a monster, and then you can kind of go into a minigame where you fight the enemies here. So I'm going to... ran out of stamina there, but I can ride on the Legambi now, so that's a nice little transition. I'm going to use the Lungabi to kind of beat up on the Great Baggy here. It is a little hard to maneuver the monster because you got to hold the R button in and kind of move around. They don't move around as fast because obviously they're trying to get you off the back. And then you get that minigame that you can do and you can attack. So you can see they're both kind of tied up with the insect. So that's kind of good. And every time you bash into these monsters, whether you use another monster to bash into it or you launch them into walls, you see a lot of the shinies drop. That's another cool thing. Look at how much loot you get just from doing that minigame. Look at that. So it's definitely worth it when the monsters actually are fighting each other for territory, that you actually are able to ride on one and do a lot of damage to the other monster, because you get a lot of free loot drops. And you need all that loot to be able to craft new gear and armors. Alright, so I'm going to ride my mount. As you can see, this is the best way to travel in Monster Hunter Rise. And fortunately, you get the mount right off the beginning. I was actually concerned that you're going to have to wait quite a while to get a Palamute, but that's automatically given to you, as well as a Palaco. So one of the things I am a little bit upset, hopefully this is part of the big update, is that you are not able to play as the Palacos anymore. So you can't play as a Prowler, unfortunately. I was actually really hoping for that. Maybe that's something that's going to be coming in the April update that they're promising, because when you actually look at the Palacos, they're able to learn skills, you're able to teach them skills, and they still level up how they did in Monster Hunter Generations as well as Monster Hunter World. So my guess is it's planned at some point that the Palacos will be actually playable as a class type. I think it's just a matter of when in the updates we get it. Maybe it'll be in April, which would be nice. Maybe that also means that we might be able to play as the Palamutes, too. Just based on the way they're set up and the fact that you could give them skills and they learn skills and level up that way, I have a feeling Capcom has something bigger planned for them, and it's just not been revealed yet because it's still very early on. Some people in their reviews were actually even complaining that the story felt light. Well, every Monster Hunter game has had a very light story in the beginning, and if you don't actually spend time in high rank and you just do the low rank village quest, you will think that that's the end of the story. And as anybody who's veteran with Monster Hunter, you have to actually play through the guild hall because that unlocks more and later on parts of the story, which is the case with Monster Hunter Rise. So do not ignore your guild hall quests. They are very important, and they help further the story when you finish your village quest story. So keep that in mind. A lot of reviewers, I get the indication that they did not invest the time to finish through high rank to be able to know the fact that the story does extend with cinematic cutscenes and everything of the sort. So, Baggy's not giving us too much of a problem here. Gotta get my buffs back up, which is gonna be pretty easy. Alright, that gives us the red and yellow. I'll get, like, the tear of the body part, and that should give us the white and the yellow with this one. I recommend when you're using the glaive in the beginning, definitely look for the buff, or the bugs that give you the double buffs. It just saves you a lot of time when you're trying to build your gauge. You always want to be triple stacked up here. We used to call it back in the day Golden Man because you are glowing gold. So you definitely want to get Golden Man with your glaive. Great Baggy goes down. Generally easy. My Sinister Staff is not level 2 yet. Probably next week you will see Sinister Staff level 2 or even the higher version of that. Next week I'll probably definitely be already on high rank. I am going to do another low rank Monster Hunter video. That one's going to drop on Thursday. We're going to do one more Monster Hunt to end it up for the day. Definitely, if this is something you want to see more of, we are going to do a lot of Monster Hunter Rise since it's a fairly new game. And I'm going to do armor reviews, and then I'm going to go over skills in the future. Obviously, since it just came out, it's going to be very hard to do all that content in the very beginning because it takes quite a while to farm. RNGesus, as they used to say, is still very prevalent when it comes to getting what you want in Monster Hunter. Like, I had to work forever to get a Magnamalo plate. I think I fought that thing at least for an hour or two straight, waiting for the plate to drop, and I finally got the plate to drop so I could build the gear and then build the weapon. And then I found out that I needed to actually augment the weapon even further because there's the rampage abilities that you could give it, and so I had to get another plate on top of a plate. I saw a lot of Magnamalos. I probably fought maybe about a good 50 to 100 of them already. Alright, so okay, we're going to do one more quest. This one we are hunting a Legambi. And basically, he is the Ice Bunny. I do not know if his deviant form is in this game. Probably guessing that there are no deviant monsters in this game because that was tied to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. What is back, which I'm actually very happy for, so this is a minor spoiler alert, but they did show it in the last trailer, so it's not really that much of a spoiler, is the Apex monsters have returned. So far, what I've experienced is that they show up in Rampage mode. It has shown up in story, but it was only during a Rampage quest. But the Apex monsters are back. I don't know if the special whetstones are back because I have not run into anything in the story that indicates it, but I have had my weapon bounce against a Apex monster. So if you liked Apex monsters from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, they are back. They hit as hard as ever. Because Frenzy is not in the game, when an Apex monster hits you with its Apex attacks, you get poisoned, it seems. I don't know if they have different blights that they do for every different Apex monster. I've only encountered one so far, but Apex monsters are still very hard to fight. super hard to take down, and I'm assuming as you go higher up in the Rampage quest, that's going to be something where you're going to fight very crazy things like, well, I won't spoil it, but there's a returning monster that was the bane of everybody's existence in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate when they did the super big quest, which were the Gilded quest, and you fought Apex monsters that were level 140. So that guy's back, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have something along those lines, and he's going to be crazy. So, super hard. I feel so sorry for this Legambi because we could just go super area on him, left and back. And I would recommend if you're using Glaive and you're in low rank, definitely go for the Magna Malo Armor, aka Sinister Armor, low rank. Because you're going to get knocked back a lot, and every time you get knocked back, you're going to get increased amount of damage, and the fact that the Hellfire Blight, when the monsters go into rage, and you power up even further, definitely worth it, because you could do a lot of damage, and Insect Glaive, pretty much now, its role changes a bit, so it's no longer something you use to obviously mount, but it is switched to the point where now you're DPS monsters. I would definitely argue that I think Glaive got such significant buffs, and now that you can DPS in the air, which is damage per second, as well as DPS on the ground, Glaive actually might be even better DPS weapon to use than the Dual Blades. Dual Blades attack a lot. Insect Glaive still can do a lot of DPS as well, though. And when you're up in the air, you actually do a lot more DPS. So, potentially here, you have a lot of potential to be able to even necessarily outcast Dual Blade users. In theory, I haven't actually experimented with this as of yet. I will actually experiment with this in the future. I didn't bring Sonic Bombs to fight. I could make my life so much easier by carrying some Sonic Bomb. If I had some Sonic Bomb, I'd just throw a Sonic Bomb and he would get stunned from that because of his great big ears, because he's an ice bunny gerbil thingy. I think it's closer to a bunny. I mean, he could be one of those really big wild bunnies. I think they called them, what were they called? Jackalopes, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think that's what he's supposed to be based on. Usually, every Monster Hunter, it's either based on a mythical dragon, or if it's a regular wild beast, it's based on a wild beast. So, he's an ice bunny. The Earthlings were like lizards that were obviously large thing. Something that's returning from a different game looks like a T-Rex. So if you play Monster Hunter World, you know exactly who I'm referring to. I actually fought one of those in Village Quest, and I was actually surprised because I was not expecting to see that here. Unfortunately, because that monster's in this game, I have a feeling one of my favorite monsters that's often referred to as a pickle probably hasn't made it in the game. I haven't seen it yet. So I hope it could return, because that's like one of the flagship monsters. Monsters that are not spoiler, that I could say definitely return. Raffian's back, Rafflos is back, Zenogre is back. So that, all these things were shown in the trailer though, so it's not spoiler. Those guys are back in. In the trailer, actually, Rajang was shown, so that's not spoiler. He's back as well. So a lot of the favorite flagships are back. There's a lot of new monsters. Some of the cooler ones, there's this new, like, electric salamander. He's really cool to fight. There's a gecko that's actually in the game. That's kind of cool. The battle's kind of nice and unique. There's something you fight really, really late in the game that has to do with ice monsters and famous ice lore, and that fight is really, really tough and really, really cool. So, as far as the new monsters go in Monster Hunter Rise, they're really nice. They got some nice lore to them. I do like the fact that all the monsters get their cutscenes again, which was something that we haven't seen since Monster Hunter 4. So it's nice because in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, you got like this mini cutscene, but there was nothing. This actually, they have like intros to them that are these full-fledged cutscenes that are, you know, voiced over and very cinematic experience. And they actually tie a little bit into the story as well, so that's a nice little change. Everything that Monster Hunter Rise does, it does better than Monster Hunter Generations, and it kind of does a lot of nods to Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. which a lot of people do still kind of prefer to Generations, despite the fact Generations added more mechanics. But Generations was the anniversary game anyway. Bunny's tired. Get my buffs first. And then I'm going to smash its face. His ears are already smashed, so he's not going to last too much longer, guys. Oh, he's all falling all over the place, so... It's time to put this bunny down. Okay. Got her buffs going on. He's getting super tired. He's a bit exhausted. He's probably going to start retreating any minute now. He did a butt stomp. That's fine. He just powered us up, actually, because of Counter-Strike. Roar wouldn't even matter if he was enraged because we got triple buff with the Insect Glaive, so we're automatic high-grade earplugs. He's going to start running away now because he's already starting to make his way to the exit. Where are you going? Come back, friend. I want to pet the bunny. I'm tempted to just let him go. I do need to sharpen my blade, so we're going to let him go. My mount actually died. Okay, he's finally back. I could chase after him. I still have a decent amount of green sharpness. One of the things I do not like about Rise, however, guys, is the fact that the map is on the lower left-hand corner. It's a lot smaller, unless you're playing on your TV screen. And then you have a big TV screen, so it used to be on the top right-hand side, where obviously the monster locations are now. Another thing that I should point out, as you see now, you don't have to paintball monsters. Once you lock onto them, it automatically tells you on the map where the monster is. So yeah, it's a little bit easier in that retrospect, but it is a bit more helpful because it frees up some of your inventory space and you don't have to carry around with things like paintballs anymore. Alright, let's get their triple buff and then put the bunny out. I wasn't going to capture it. There's not really items that you get from a low rank Legambi that you really are going to have a hard time getting off of carves, so it's not really worth capturing. You do get more rewards off capturing, but I don't want to waste the traps anyway. I'm kind of low on resources for traps. I need them for actually trap objectives that do appear in story quests. Bunny's very, very tired right now. He probably won't even get enraged, so we can't get our Hellfire Blight buff up. And we aerialed him to death there. Oh, we did get the Hellfire Blight, so he did get a little bit angry. Alright, guys, so I took down the Legambi. This is the Sinister Armor, which gives you a lot of good abilities to play around with. If you're using Glaive, you can get automatically high-grade earplugs anyway with the triple buff, so you don't have to worry necessarily about getting a necklace like that early on in the game, or a talisman, I should say. Everything about Monster Hunter Rise has improved. A lot of quality of life improvements. Graphics, not having to worry about loading screens during an actual quest. Monsters fighting for territory. Mounting mechanic, which is a little different, but not in a bad way. You know, being able to gather things helps. Being able to mine things quickly helps. Everything about this game has been improved significantly over its predecessor on the Switch, which is a good thing. Obviously, retail price game, so $65.99. If you get the deluxe version, $76.95. So, deluxe version gives you just kind of some cosmetics as well as the novice talisman. I got it because I had the Steelbook from Best Buy anyway, which is a really cool looking book. So, definitely let me know what armors you would like to see featured from Monster Hunter Rise, what monsters you would like to see me fight in the game. I could definitely do that. Tell me what weapons you would like to see me feature, and we will definitely make that happen. I'm taking all the suggestions this week so that next week we start focusing on some of that type of content. I'll be back on Thursday with another Monster Hunter. We're going to clear through a couple more low rank quests and experiment more with the Sinister Armor and the Sinister Staff. Thanks for watching. Make sure you give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already.